What up, traders? I know I haven't made a video in a little bit, so I kind of wanted to go through and talk about a couple stocks, a few things that I'm looking at, check out my charts, the ideas that I have, see how everything's been playing out that I've talked about previously, see if there's anything that we could potentially be looking to play to the upside or the downside. Let's see how potentially this next week could be setting up. I'm going to talk about a few things in this, so if you're excited, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and even leave a comment on your thoughts, ideas on this market, where you think it's potentially heading in the next couple of months. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Let me know down below. So the first thing we're going to look at is Tesla. This was something that we were talking about roughly down in this range here, probably around this point right here. And we were looking at this. Oh, no, it was right here. We were looking at this consolidation right here as being a bullish consolidation, potentially a bull flag of some sort. And potentially we were looking for a blast off to 220, which would be up into the previous high and potentially up to the down sloping resistance. Originally, my idea was that we were in some kind of larger bull flag that we broke out of. We were back testing as as support, so on and so forth, which was, I think, like this downtrending line or so. And then we drew something like this, whatever, kind of like that. Like this whole thing was a bull flag and then a back test. And obviously we had a big fake out. We did get a very nice pump. So from this area, I was talking about holding the 185 area, I believe at the time, was it 185 or so as support? And then we blasted all the way up, or 180 as support. Well, I don't really remember. 176.40 was a low. We blasted all the way up to about 208. I was in calls on this, and I ended up selling early around like the 200 area, unfortunately, because I really thought we were going to get, rejected there as it was looking. And then we just completely continued the following day all the way to 208. But then we had a complete smackdown. Now, the next idea that I had was to come down, hold the 85 as support and the 185 as support, and then bounce up. But we actually just pretty much broke right through it. So the next thing that I ended up doing as we came back in was I was looking for that 176.40 once again. Now, if you guys have followed my channel or watched any of my videos on Tesla for, a couple of weeks or months or however, you guys would probably know that 176.40 was a very critical level. That's something I talked about quite a few times. There was a lot of support there. There still is a lot of support there for now. And I ended up taking a call on Tesla when we reached 176.40. I got a call and we ran up. Now, what I was playing at the time was I was in it at 176.40. We came up and we were just chopping around under the 186. We broke up. We started holding 187 as support. And then I ended up closing my trade the day before we reached the 190, 150 or so in this consolidation. I was in here after rallying it all the way up, and I was like, man, this thing could get bullish. But I started noticing a lot of rejection up in that 187, 180. Oh, no, it was here. 187, 188 area. So it ended up coming up to 188.30 multiple times somewhere. And I ended up closing out on the 188.30 level. Where was that? Must have been over here. No. Either way, I closed out at the 188.30. Oh, it was over here. Here's the consolidation. So we were in this consolidation here after the rally to the 176. And we were just poking our head up. We launched up to 189.30, came back down, got resistance again, 188.50-ish to 188.30. So I closed it the day prior to this rally. I closed it in this candle here, 188.30. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get out and it seems like we were holding the 185 to 186 as support. It was doing pretty well, but something in me, my intuition, whatever, my trading intuition was telling me, I think I should get out. If we pop up in the morning, we're above 190, we're holding it as support, then maybe I'll flip bullish, even, or I'll flip back into my long. Well, we ended up getting a nice rally up in the morning, and I was like, shit, I probably shouldn't have closed that call. But we just ended up completely faking out, rallying all the way back down. We got rejected on that 200 EMA on the 15-minute, whatever. It's doesn't matter now, but just good to look. But we did get the rejection, and we came back down. Now, as of now, what I am still looking at, and I did make a post on this when we came back down to this 176.40 low, I was talking about the potential of this overall being a larger consolidation here. Now, the problem for me so far is that we did have this first high, and then we were making a lower high. I was talking about this before, that the possibility of this being a lower high is actually, pretty strong, but we can keep an eye on it to see if the bull flag idea does play out and we get a blast to the upside. But unfortunately, we kind of did end up putting in this lower high and starting to make an M pattern here. Now, it's possible that we could come down and this ends up holding as support and then we get a blast up, depending on how everything goes. But I'm not too sure yet how I feel about that. Currently, since the rejection of that 191 area, we got a nice sell-off, and we're starting to put in a little bit of a double bottom right here, maybe a triple bottom of some sort, but there is possibilities as well that this here is some kind of, it's a symmetrical triangle, obviously. We have clear downtrending resistance. Until we can close back above the 186 and hold it as support, we have to continue to potentially defend that level as a bear. It's really like 186.25 or so, like something like that. Above that, a hold above that could flip this trend back to the upside. So really we want to just watch the 186.30, 186.25 area. We want to see it flip back to support and hold it potentially as support, as we were trying to do here. Then we lost it. So until Tesla can do that, we kind of have to assume that we are now flipping an area. This looks like a bullish chart, right? Like, I can draw this out as very bullish, but I can also draw it out as pretty bearish as well, as this has a pretty large downtrending move into it and then a sideways consolidation. Does that mean we are getting ready for a leg lower? So that's something to keep in mind. I'm kind of watching that. I'm on the little bit more on the bearish end here as we move into the coming weeks, and I'll show you a little bit why on the SPY and potentially on the NASDAQ as well. So as of now, I'm thinking it's bearish. Now, I'll show you another thing that I'm looking at. As you can see, this 186 level had a lot of confluence. When we came up here, we pretty much held above here. Anytime we broke this 186, we dropped pretty low, but we came back up. We consolidated under it as potential resistance. In here, we could have said the same thing as where we're at now, right? We could have said this here was some kind of bearish move into it and then a sideways consolidation for a drop down, but we blasted through the 186, came up to 200, got rejected, double bottomed on the 186, and then blasted up higher. So this level here is an important level on this chart. Doesn't mean that it has to hold it down. You can see what happens when we break through it. We get a lot of momentum. That's going to be the similar thing here. Now, the one thing that I'm concerned about is eventually, if this is going to be bearish, this 186 level will flip to resistance and we will fail off of it. This time, we consolidated under it, we broke through, double bottomed and rallied, and then broke through again. This time, we're consolidating under it, using it as resistance. Will we blast up again, come up to the 203, come down, maybe double bottom on it, maybe reject again, and then eventually we break down somewhere at the end of May or so? That's a possibility. So we do want to watch that. If we do get a blast through and we flip this to support, we could do some calls, start flipping long, and then we can ride it up. And then just keep in mind we have the 208 and then this potential of this downtrending resistance. If this does come up here, We'll have to see how the reaction is at the 203. If we end up getting a rejection of some sort, maybe that'll be a good short in this range. It's tough to say, but right now we are clearly getting resistance under the 186. So until then, we do have to continue to potentially defend that range as a bear, right? We want to join the trend. The trend has been, technically, it's been not very good. We've been down, ripping back up, not being able to hold it, coming down. You can do it both ends. You can buy calls at the low end of this range, then sell it up at 186, or potentially look for it to long up here. If we were to break down below the 183s, then you might want to look at us potentially going lower, or 182.40, however you want to play it. If you look at an hourly, we had a double bottom close on the hourly candles at 183 roughly, 182.90. We had wicks that went below, but no bodies closing below. If we start closing below and flipping 183, 182.50-ish to resistance, we could look for a drop down. The lower support is that 180. Below 180, we start heading back down. The problem for me is if we go all the way back down to the 176.40 again, is it possible that this box range of support starts getting a little too tested? That's something to think about if we do come back down to the 176.40, but we still want to potentially assume that it could hold until it doesn't. So if we look on daily, this is a little bit about Tesla, but I'm going to get into a few different things. So if you're still here, stick around because we're going to try to get into some other things. I just want to go over a few things. So prior to the last bounce off of the 165, on the daily, we were holding the 50 EMA as support. We got a 50 crossing the 100, a nice little, not really a golden cross, I guess, but you know, it is a good signal for a nice push, and that's exactly what we got. We're still below the 200 EMA, which is up at the 214 or so. But right now, we're basically flagging whether it's a bearish consolidation or a bullish consolidation. We have to kind of think bearish right now because we do have the downtrend going into it. But we're basically holding above the 100 on the daily, but we're getting clear resistance off the previous support of the 50. We got a big spike up here that rejected us at 199.60, and then we rejected. So we're still consolidating below these EMAs. That's not a very good sign. If we look on a weekly time frame, we are holding the 200 EMA. 200 EMA is roughly around that 176.40, so it is continuing to hold pretty well. Is this slowly setting up for a potential of a blast off? There is a possibility for that still. You have the 21 that's curling up here, but the 50's coming down. Eventually, we're going to get a big squeeze, and it's going to have to make a decision on which way it's going to go. That'll be something to watch in the coming weeks. Keep an eye on those EMAs. Keep an eye on price action. See how we're doing. There will be a big trade coming. We have to decide which direction. Looking at it like this, if we looked over here on a weekly, there was a point that we had a nice consolidation here. It all looked well and good, but we had the 50 above price that we get rejected on and the 21 below price. We were holding the 100 EMA here. We had still had the 200 below us, which was down here, but we were looking like, whoa, this could be a nice bullish consolidation. Maybe we're going to blast up. But instead, what do we have going on here? A lower high, lower high, lower high, lower low, lower low, lower low. So that's something also to consider as we are potentially doing something kind of similar. Bull flag looks kind of nice. We still had that lower low, but now we still have a lower high. So technically, the trend is still obviously bearish, but you know, there's always cases to be made that we could eventually break through that and start making that higher high. But we also have the 21 EMA below and the 50 EMA above, up at roughly like 217, 218 on a weekly chart. And we're below the 100 EMA this time. So if it did rally and it does decide to push up, maybe it comes, you know, this is on the bullish case scenario. If this pattern does break to the upside and we are going to continue on a bullish trajectory for now, then we do potentially have a target that reaches all the way up to almost, well, actually it goes to about 260, but the 100 EMA is 250. If Tesla decides to get really freaking bullish, then that could be a potential. We go back up to retest that 100 EMA that we broke down from here. So that's something that's still on my mind as I'm coming in here, thinking maybe it's going to be a short. I'm also thinking if it does break above the 186, start flipping it to support, maybe we do need to consider some long trades to come in. So just keep an eye on this, and on the hourly chart, 180, it's getting pretty tight in this potential symmetrical triangle. So if we can hold above the 186 again, maybe even wait till it flips 190 into support, however you want to play it, whatever you feel safe on, that's up to you. But that's Tesla. So is this previous support going to flip to resistance and we break lower, or are we going to flip it back to support and break to the upside and start trying to potentially break some of this resistance? The way the Tesla moves, it does get rejected quite a bit at the 200 area to 205. Could we just break down and then break back up eventually at the very end of the pattern? That's possible. But if this is a large symmetrical triangle and we are going to move to the upside with it, I would assume there's still going to be some pretty good chop in here until something happens. But let's keep an eye on all this. We are towards the lower end of the range with a downtrend move into the consolidation. Potentially we're putting in low, higher low, higher low, but then we have a lower high, lower high. Are we going to do another lower high? Or are we going to blast up and break through? So that's coming in this next week. So definitely going to want to watch Tesla because it's going to be a big move coming. NVDA. NVDA. So we've had a very powerful move to the upside. Obviously, it's been on a very nice run since this bottoming action, whether it's inverse head and shoulders, however you want to call it, big symmetrical triangle down at the bottom, breakout, targeted move to the upside was 270-ish to 280, and that's pretty much where we've stalled out here. NVDA has been putting in, starting to put in some lower highs and some lower lows. We're just at the start of it. First high, lower high, first low, lower low. Obviously, it hasn't potentially broken this low, so maybe that's not considered a lower low yet. We will have to watch that 263 to 262.50 area. If we start flipping 263.50 into resistance, this thing could start to have its breakdown. I have this uptrending support here, roughly a bounce here, bounce here, bounce here. If we were to get a breakdown and we came back down, 252, 253 area could be an area to bounce off of as an uptrending support. And if we broke down from this potential pattern that we're putting in here, breakdown target is down to about 245. If we were to break to the upside off of this pattern, the upside target is about 290. So we are getting into some consolidation here, and the bulls do not want to drop this below the 262.50 or call it 263.30. So if you're a bull and you're defending that range, so far it is trying to play out for you. Currently, I am watching the 268.50. That level has been very nice. It's been paying well on shorts. I've been shorting the 268.50 and bringing it down to about the 264 area and then closing. Currently, I am in a short. I grabbed a short on Friday at the 268.50. We just continue to show that level is very big. Right here you can see nice double top wick on the 15-minute. Prior to that, we had consolidation here that rolled over. NVDA has been showing some weakness in my opinion, but that doesn't mean it's just not in sideways consolidation, and it still hasn't broken down. So we do have to just continue to watch that area. We kind of have this pattern setting up here within that larger pattern with a resistance roughly around this 100 EMA on the 15-minute, roughly about 268. I'm still going to watch the 268.50 versus this downtrending resistance, but we are consolidating down at the lower end of this range. Another way to look at this, if you wanted to look at it in another bearish potential matter, if I can get some service here, that would be awesome. Uh-oh, freezing up here. Come on, motherfucker. Let me try this again. Sorry. If you're still with me, leave a comment down below and let me know if you are bearish Tesla or bullish Tesla. And then also, if you are bearish NVDA or bullish NVDA. I want to know what you're thinking about that idea. Crap. Kidding me? There we go. I think. So another thing that I was kind of looking at this as well, if we were to get rid of some of these lines, get rid of the moving averages, the second thought that I had here was if you look on the 15-minute, we had a wick here, support, a wick here, support, a wick here, support, and a wick here, support, right? This was support, support, support. So then we finally broke it. And when we broke it, let me line this up with this last wick here because this was a very nice bounce, so this was important. So we bounced off really strong. When we came back up and rejected this 270, 269 area again, I actually put in calls here and rode it up, and we started rolling, and I didn't close it. And I was like, maybe we'll come back down. Excuse me. Come back down and double bottom here and then rally back up and make a higher low. Well, once we broke through the potential of the higher low, I had to close it for a small loss. So I closed it probably on roughly on this break here because we came down to 267.70. We broke through to 67s, bought back up, and then the next one we broke 67s, and I got stopped out right at somewhere below that 67s. And it was a good idea because I would have been losing a lot more. But we did eventually bottom and then rally back up again, and we made a higher low. Then I started shorting it, and I was like, all right, I'm flipping short now. Flipped short. We rallied up again and just kind of continued down. I closed it down here, and then we rallied back up again. I waited. I thought we were going to break the low here. We rallied all the way back up. So I was getting ready to short it if we broke through, but it kind of faked out. Rallied back up. So I'm looking for more shorts up in this range again. I have one put that I still have from up here. I only closed one. I'm holding the other one because I kind of have this other idea that if this was just starting a potential of like a downtrending channel or something like that, right, that eventually leads NVIDIA to this support, that we could potentially chop in here and just start doing something like that until either we break to the downside or we bounce off and then break back up to potentially go back and test this downtrending resistance again. So, you know, I'm not sure how it's going to all play out. Maybe the first idea is right, where we're just like holding the support and we're just going to continue to rally back up. Then we come back up and we tap the 75s again, which I would probably short again. But we definitely have a clear area of resistance at 280, and then we also have a clear resistance box up here between the 274.50 to 276-ish, or 277.50, whatever you want to call it. But in this range, there's a big resistance, and we got rejected here. Big drop down to 260. Came up, broke through, double topped, came down, held support, ripped up, got rejected again, back tested at resistance, fell, and now, based off of this 15-minute chart, even though it's not bodies closing below, we're looking like we're making lower high, lower low, lower low. Do we come back up and double top and make another higher low, which would be right here around that 269, 270 area? That's possible. Or we just continue to chop in here. So these are what I'm kind of looking at. Just wanted to put that on everyone's radar for me. If we did come back up here and we started getting through the 270s, we have 272.30 or so. If we were to continue to follow this trend line, right in this previous consolidation here, personally, I think if we broke through 270, I wouldn't just start jumping in shorts yet. I'd want to see either a, you know, it looks like kind of like this, and then we show rejection, or a blast up here, similar thing, and show rejection. So that's what I'd be looking for if we do get all the way up there. I'll get stopped out if we start clearing 270 and potentially holding this support. So that's NVIDIA. So I'm kind of on the bearish end on a couple things here. And, you know, it kind of makes sense. for me, it makes sense to be getting bearish up in these levels. Like, this was a clear resistance area right here, 280 to 273 or so. You know, maybe even, 268.50 or so. Look, we had 268.50s right here, 269.70, something like that. Over here, we kind of made a similar pattern where we had, I mean, this obviously looks like a head and shoulders here, hindsight, but we had our higher high. Well, we had a higher high, then all of a sudden, lower high, lower low, and then bam, drop. So here, obviously, we had a relief rally that came up, faked a lot of people out, looked like a nice double bottom that played out, but then higher low. Sorry, did I say higher low? Is that right? Lower high? Oh, lower high. Then we started making the lower high again. So lower high, lower low, lower high, so on and so forth, right? You guys understand what I'm saying. So I'm just kind of trying to catch the trend change before, all that happens. I kind of want to do that. So we are right here. So we're just starting to potentially break the 21 EMA on the daily. Kind of like what we did here. Started to break the 21. We consolidated under it. Resistance tap on it. Started crossing down. We were holding the 50. And then eventually we fell through. And then used it as resistance. And it was definitely a choppy trend. Couldn't hold the 100 as the 100 EMA. Eventually we held the 100 EMA. Came up. We broke the 21 a few times on the daily. We always seem to rally back up. Now we finally broke the 21 and we closed the daily below it. You can see here we had a daily candle close below it, but then the next one just bought back up. We didn't actually hold below it. Here, daily candle body closed right at it. Here, what's this candle doing? Close a candle body below, and then the next candle we closed literally underneath the 21 as resistance. So that's why I'm remaining in my short here. And the 21's roughly around that 269 to 268.50 area. So if we were to come back down, maybe we come back down and test the 50, or maybe we come back down and test this trend. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I'm looking for about 252, 253. And then I would probably take profits there and then look for another consolidation, maybe another bounce up to retest 264 area, maybe 266, something like that, and then short that, and then maybe it comes back down and then it goes lower on the next one. It's hard to say, obviously. Maybe I'm wrong, and this whole thing is just a nice bullish consolidation. We blast up higher and break through 280. I don't know, but I'm looking for shorts. So that's what I'm doing. Just wanted to let you guys know on that. Kind of going a little further out, like end of May area. That's kind of my idea. So I'm kind of going on like a longer rather than like a day trade. Going on like a longer short, trying to find a nice short entry. I like anything from 268.50, and then if that breaks through and we start holding 270, then I'll have to start looking in like the 275, 276 area instead. Maybe. And until we get back below 268, flip it back to resistance, and then obviously then I'm back to shorts again, so on and so forth. So sorry, that's a long video, thing on it. Let's go to Bitcoin right now. So Bitcoin has now tapped pretty good range of resistance potentially. We have the first couple red candles on the daily. Is it just going to go into some kind of bullish consolidation here again that chops around? I don't know. It's hard to say. Personally, I'm starting to think bearish on Bitcoin as well. Maybe we still have room to go up to this 100 weekly here. It's about 33,400 or 33,300. There's a possibility of that for sure. You can see on the weekly we have the 21 crossing up. Maybe it's going to get one more cross. Maybe all the moving averages do start moving up here. And that does signal some kind of pump. We'll have to see. The daily, obviously, all the EMAs still look nice. Nothing too concerning about it. We're still putting, higher high, even though this was a low and a lower low, but technically this was the first low, this was the second low, then a big rally up. Maybe this is a bull flag breakout right now, and then we're just going to come back down and back test it. If you're bullish, that's probably what you'd want to look for. If that was the case, then we should come back down at least and retest the 28.7 area to 28.600 area. That was an area of previous support. If you look on the RSI here, you can see my pattern, similar to what we have on the chart on the RSI. We had our consolidation, our breakout, and then will the RSI come back down and potentially back test this and continue back up. You know, obviously it's RSI, so you can't go like on a full breakout where you go into like fucking 300, you know what I mean? It doesn't do that, but it does correct, comes back down, it bounces a little bit, corrects, comes back down. And just because it corrects doesn't mean it has to drop all the way down to 18K or anything. Do we have any type of bearish divergence on the daily? No, it looks like we kind of broke through the potential of any type of bearish divergence, at least on the daily. But, whoops, I did something to my chart. Oh, I just added a RSI thing. Remove, yes. So, anyway, that's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. If we look on a 4-hour chart, I kind of have this rising, kind of like a rising channel. We tapped it here, tapped it here, tapped it here, rejection. We got support here, support here, support here, rejection. So far, rejection. We got a little bit of a downtrending area going here. We haven't really closed any candle bodies below 30,200. We've had wicks below, but no bodies closing below. So once we start flipping that back to resistance, that could be a good signal. Here, came up, body closed below. Came up, body closed above. Then came down, we wicked all the way to the bottom support, bought all the way back up, closed back above. So now we're kind of testing that same support. If this does end up failing, then we could be potentially looking for shorts. So that 30,200 is going to be a key area. So far we are bouncing off of it, but we're getting tighter in this range. Maybe we get a bullish, maybe we get a breakout. We'll have to see how it plays out, but we're getting pretty tight in this little bit of an area here. So we're going to have to just continue to watch it and see if anything's going to happen here. If it does end up breaking to the upside, we could spike all the way back up to retest this 30,800 to 31K. If we do that, that's okay. Maybe that's a good shorting area. Something to look at here on the weekly. Obviously, we can still come up here to like 33K, like I said. But this is definitely a range. A lot of price action happened here. So this is an area to look for rejection, is right in here. And that's roughly where we're at. We're chilling right in this range. We're just poking our heads into it for the first time. So to see a nasty rejection, I'm not going to be too concerned on it. I'd like to see it. What could BTC do? It could actually end up doing something similar like this, where it puts in the first high, we come down, we make a higher low, maybe in the 24K area. So maybe 24, maybe 22, something like that. That wouldn't be out of the question. Usually you don't just get, yeah, I mean, it's not really a V-shaped recovery because you kind of have, you know, a inverse head and shoulders. But most of the time you get some kind of drop back down. Even here, we had a nice bottom, rallies up. Then we came down and we made a higher low. That was very nice. You know, multiple times on the weekly time frames. Well, that's all my chart shows for now, but that's what we end up doing. We tried to do that here and we got rejected. So that's also something to keep an eye on, but that was a little different scenario. Now we're at the bottom of the trend versus the top of the trend potentially. So just keep an eye on it. There's a neckline here around that 23.5, so that could be huge support. And then also that 25,000, that's also a good area. So we kind of have two very critical support areas between 23, we'll call it 23.7 and 25. If we do get a big rejection and just start consolidating to the downside and doing something like this, then maybe we test this area and then blast off. So that'll be something to look at. I think that's all. I got Apple too. This is gonna be a long video, so hopefully you guys are still here. So Apple, similar scenario. I mean, we had a very nice rally. We had this uptrending support here previously. We broke it. We came back. We broke back in. Now we're kind of moving back up. I'm not too concerned on the uptrending support. If we were going to somehow blast through here, maybe we just retest that, would be around 184. But for now, I'm looking at this 166.14. It seems to be pretty clear. If we continue higher, there's only a little bit more we can go, which would be 170 would be the highest point, roughly. I mean, there's a lot of wicks, but based off of this wick, we wicked through on this wick. I mean, all these wicks. This wick caused nasty rejections each time. We're not quite there yet, but we are moving up there. So whether or not Apple has to first have some more consolidation, get a nice bounce, then we go up and test it, and then we get the nasty rejection down, that's possible that we do something like that. I am looking at Apple. I'm just going to continue to watch it. For now, it looks like potentially this 166.14 is giving us a little bit of an issue. So if we do end up getting the rejection, this could start the downtrend, or it could just start a nice consolidation pickup zone to come back up and retest that 170. But I'm starting to look for some corrections, some bigger corrections here. Kind of have this rising channel, support, resistance, then we broke it, but we didn't close below. We rallied back up. On the next test, are we going to break it? Then we have to break this low of 59.80, and that'll confirm that we did put in a potential short-term top. So that could be a trade, would be below 59.60 or so. But this is definitely a lower high, lower low, from that one. Lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Maybe. That's what I'm kind of looking at. Not saying this is the exact top at this moment. 66 could be 170. We still could have some more room to go to the upside. But for now, I am starting to think bearish on everything, as you see. Not really looking for huge, massive breakout candles to come in, but it could be wrong. That's how I'm playing this market in this coming week. SPY, big symmetrical triangle. We had that trend break over here that dropped us down. Obviously, lower high, lower high, lower low, lower low, lower high, and in the midst of another potential lower high. If we were to wick up here and make a new high, we could still come back down, retest this low, then break higher. But for now, I'm looking potentially the same high or a lower high. I'm not sure how it's going to play out yet, but we're still in a range of a lower high, potentially. Looking at this as a symmetrical triangle, if we drew it off the wicks, which is right there, that's going off of this wick right here. You can see I lined that up. That wick there, and I don't care about anything else. Then on the downside, this wick here and this drop wick here. That's one way to draw it. Some people could be potentially drawing it like this, but I'm not a huge fan of those type of things. But if that's the case, then this is support, broke, came back up, retesting that resistance, then we drop. I don't know, but we're getting up into some resistance areas. We had a wick that broke out through. We have this potential rising channel. The lower support of the rising channel is at 408.75. If we start breaking and flipping that to resistance, that'll be where we can signal the shorts to come back in. Until then, technically, we just play the range from 410 or 409 up to wherever we decide to go, 418, 419, something like that. But this is just a speculation pattern. Doesn't mean if we do break through it that, oh my God, we're breaking out, we're going huge. But I'm just waiting to see if this is going to be something that the rest of the market's agreeing on. I'm not sure yet because we just closed our body right below it. We haven't closed above it. You can see the 4-hour candles are pretty much respecting it pretty well. So it's kind of signaling to me that this might be a thing. We'll have to wait and see. But otherwise, the 1385 area is pretty big. We've never really found too much support. We've gone as high as 416, but we've never closed candle bodies above the 416. It's been a while at least. So that's something to consider. You can see over here, even in this chop range, we couldn't really close any candle bodies above that. and we couldn't really hold this 413.85 as support, roughly 413.85 to 414.60, somewhere in there. But I'm gonna keep it at like this area here. Yeah, maybe 414.11. I don't know. Either way, somewhere around there. We've gotten rejected here many of times, so we're getting back up into that range. So it's something to be cautious about. Will we finally break through, or are we just going to reject it and fall back down here and start testing these lows and decide from there, is this going to finally be the bottom? If this does reject, comes back down, holds this as support, then we might be looking at something better, like a big breakout. But that would signal all of the other things I was talking about with a big, nice rejection. And then maybe this finally plays out in this pattern, whether it's to the downside or the upside. I don't know. It's a pretty big bearish move into a big consolidation. One thing I was looking at here on SPY, if you look at the EMAs, what happened, was it on the monthly? It was on the monthly. Let's see the last time we went into a big bear market. This first time was in 2008. The 21 EMA holding as support the whole trend. We broke it. We flipped it to resistance. We were holding the 50 EMA as support and the 21 EMA as resistance. The 21 EMA was curling down while the 50 was below it. Eventually, we broke the 50 after rejecting the 21, and we dumped all the way down. And then we had a nice rally where we reclaimed the 21, and then we moved up and we held it as support, held it as support, held it as support until we broke it. Then we started using the 21 EMA as resistance and the 50 EMA as support. And right now we are coming up and starting to test this area of this 21 EMA, which is about around 417 as resistance. And the 50 below, the 21 above, curling down. So it's kind of similar to the 2008 area on the monthly chart. That doesn't mean that Monday it crashes. It just means that that's something to consider as we are in the same similar scenario that we had over there in 2008. If you look over here, this was in year 2000. Same thing, holding the 21 EMA as support. We broke through the 21 EMA. We used it as resistance, used the 50 EMA as support, the 21 EMA curling down, 50 EMA between. Price action finally broke the 50 and we broke down. That's the same kind of setup that we have going on here. So that's just something to keep in mind here as we're feeling very bullish and feeling FOMO. Now, in a market that we ended up getting a nice bull run out of, like we're all thinking, is this going to be a bull run here starting? Look at the scenario here on a monthly time frame. We had a break above the 21. We had the 50 above and the 21 below, not the 21 above and the 50 below. We bull flagged out. We had a nice bull flag, and then we finally broke above the 50 and the 100, held it as support, and we went up. So see this nice bull flag action? And look at the difference. On a bearish market, we were making a bear flag, bearish move into it, consolidation sideways below those two EMAs. So that's just kind of something I've been looking at here, and I'm like, is this what we're doing? Are we making a bearish move into it? We're below the 21 as resistance, 50 as support. In a bull market, it was 21 EMA as support, 50 as resistance. That was the difference. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but it is something I want to keep in mind. So I'm starting to look for shorts in here. On the daily, we still are looking bullish here for the short term. We still do look like we could move up here a little higher. Maybe we test that 418, 417, and we just disregard this potential of this pattern. I don't know. If you guys are still following me and still listening in, leave a like. Let me know how you feel about SPY. Do you think that we're going to go further to the upside, or are we going to start moving potentially to the downside in the coming week or two? That's something to think about. So I'm going to start loading up some shorts on SPY. I've already entered a little bit at the 1350 area. I'm going to grab some more. If we can get up towards 1416, 1417, I'll probably start adding some more, and I'll add some more up to the 418s if I have to, and I'll just average in. And I don't think that we're going to break through the 420s. If we do, then obviously either I'll just get stopped out if we start flipping into support. I'll have to wait and see. If 413.80 starts becoming support, that might cause me to close my positions early as it is. So I'm going to have to watch and see. But I am going to be looking for some shorts in this coming week. And I'm kind of just trying to watch how everything's going to play out. Is this going to turn into a big M pattern that eventually turns into a big W pattern? Or is it going to turn into an M pattern that ends up eventually breaking and finally breaking? What's been holding up SPY from breaking the 380 is tech. Big tech. Bank stocks not doing well, downtrend. But tech keeps us from crashing. Now we're getting up here. Banks are starting to look like they're doing well, and tech is starting to look weak. Tech makes up majority of the SPY. If SPY does decide to roll over here, if banks start rolling over after this relief rally, and tech continues to show weakness, what's going to hold up SPY down at this support this time? If that does happen, right? That's my speculation. If banks are doing well, are we going to pause rates? Is that good for tech? Yes. If banks are supposedly doing well in their earnings and everything, is the Fed going to have to pause? No. If banks continue to rally and tech continues to get weak, the Feds don't have to pause. They can continue to raise rates. It will affect the banks, but the tech is what holds up the SPY more than the banks. There's way more, and you know what I mean? So if you guys understood all of that, that's just my thought. And then lastly, the DXY. We'll throw that in there because it is important. Something to look at. The DXY broke down here, sent SPY into a very choppy consolidation. Looked partially bullish, but also sent tech into a giant bull run short term. We finally hit a bottom. We rallied up. That corrected SPY and corrected a few things, and we came down here. Now we're looking like we're putting in a potential of a double bottom. If this does hold up, whether we break that top of the range or not at 106, that'll be to be seen. This could also mean that as we're double bottoming on the DXY and the SPY is looking more like this at the top of the range, is this signaling the potential outcome of that pattern that we're talking about? Is this looking like something that could be setting up? You don't want to be at the top of the range making an M pattern while the DXY is making a W pattern at the bottom of the range. I'd be watching that $100.08 or whatever, 182. But for now, it does look like we might have bottomed here. It's hard to say for sure. Look at the hourly pattern we broke down from here. This key support of roughly 101.8. We need to break back above that if you are bearish. And if you're bullish, you want to see this thing come up to 108 or so, reject, come back down and break through this bottom low. If this thing rallies back up, find support, you still have downtrending resistance at 102.50. If this thing comes up to 102.50 and rejects and breaks through, then maybe that'll look good for the markets as long as this breaks the low. If it comes back up, finds support, and breaks through the 102.50, starts making a new high, that's not going to be good for the markets, obviously. So that's another reason I'm getting a little bearish as we're bouncing off that potential double bottom. So I want to watch this, but maybe this is something to do. Now, if you are bullish on DXY, there is a stock called UUP. It's very cheap. It moves very slow, just like the DXY. So you can always take a chance and, do some calls that with some money that you don't really care about too much. Do you mind sitting for a while? And you could potentially be doing some calls very, very far out, like 4 or 5 months out, and see what happens. Maybe it'll pay out. If we rally up here, there's downtrending resistance at 104.5 and then the 105.8. So these are the areas. Maybe this is still making a bearish consolidation. Maybe the stock market's still bullish, and this is just going to chop in here, continue with our chop in the stock market, and eventually maybe break to the downside. And it would just hit this resistance and just continue like this. That would be very bullish for the stock market. So we'll have to see. So I hope you guys enjoyed all of this. I'm going to let you go now. I know that was a very long video. Hit the like, subscribe. Let me know what you think about it, and let me know if you wanted me to check out any other stocks or anything. Peace.